everyone, and welcome to Growing Together, a gardening podcast with me, John Lamb, and Don Kinsler, a lifelong gardener and the North Dakota State University Extension horticulturist for Cass County. Don, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the middle of summer here. The vegetable garden is doing well.
Yes.
You know, we've got some heat, we've had some moisture, things are coming along. I got the fencing up for the pole beans.
Okay.
So they're growing, and peas.
Yeah.
I put chicken wire
We've
for those.
started seeing some pods already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You're ahead of mine.
Yeah.
But things are coming along nicely. And so I'm really happy. And here in the middle of summer, our delphiniums are blooming.
Yep.
We planted them last year, didn't let them bloom that first year. They're the intermediate height.
Okay.
Sometime I'd like to try the ones that get like 6 feet tall, the big massive spikes of bloom. But these are kind of an intermediate, need less staking.
Okay.
Less likely to topple over, but enjoying those. Lilies are blooming. The Asiatic, the upward-facing type lilies, those are blooming. So it's fun, kind of the high summer.
Yeah,
to see what's going on.
There's a lot of the first wave of things, the peonies, the iris, those have gone, the bleeding hearts, things like that. But yeah, the second kind of flush is coming in, including some things like salvia. If you've cut back your salvia, your second flush will be coming in pretty soon.
Blue
probably.
Bayou.
Blue Bayou, that's right. That's
my
the one
favorite.
That you go with.
Yes. It was
Yes.
All-America winner. And yes, that first flush in kind of May, early June, cut that back. That's, like you say, that's starting to come back with another flush. And I've even gotten a third flush of blooms on that because, most perennials have their time.
Right.
And then they're done. But that perennial salvia is one where if you cut it back, anything else in your yard that you notice is really doing well?
Seeing how much things have shot up, even from day to day. Squash plants are cucumber plants. We're trying a couple of cucumbers. We've got those kind of vining up.
Do you have on a trellis?
Yeah, on trellis. They're probably outgrowing that. We should probably transfer them to a bigger trellis.
They might crawl back down around the other side.
Yeah, that could be.
Once they hit the top.
So our first time with that. Like I said, our peas are coming in well. Beans are coming in well. We're starting to see the first of our tomatoes coming in. Our shishito peppers, probably in a week or two. We could start.
I've not grown that one.
Those are really nice. They're long. They say, I think like 1 of every 10 is hot. And so they're just a nice, we like to fry.
So it's like a surprise?
Yeah, it's kind of a surprise.
Because surprise which?
It's like a good snacking pepper. Like we fry them up.
That's interesting how about 1 in every 10 is hot.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of nice because you'll be sitting there, you'll be eating one, and you'll be one, you're like, oh, well, that's... Yeah. But yeah, they're a nice roasting thing or frying real quick. But yeah, some things are really kind of coming in really, really well, and it's fun to see. And it's like, the snapdragons are really coming in great for us too. So this is the first year we've really had a lot of those in pots and keeping those up and away from the dogs so that they don't knock them over. And those are doing really well for us. So yeah, it's really fun to see. We're having a lot of cut stems, bringing things into the house, and yeah. Well, and today we're here where it is. This is 4th of July weekend. We thought we would be talking about we talk about Independence Day for gardeners, things that we should be doing and shouldn't be doing. And so we've got plans. What are you going to be doing this the actual 4th of July weekend?
Gardening.
Yes.
In addition to being a line of work, that is also my hobby. Yeah. And so I am just as happy as can be if on a weekend, we like to travel and do other things too, but on a weekend when we can garden, that's probably my favorite weekend of all. And so I've got weeds. So far, I'm ahead of the weeds, but they're growing.
Yeah, they are.
And so I got to do a lot of weeding to stay ahead of that. And so going to be gardening. I actually have some more stuff to plant.
Yeah.
I'm not totally done planting yet. I've got some perennials. One that I just planted, lupins.
Oh, yeah,
I'm planting them almost in pure peat moss, trying to see if I can't get lupins to grow in this heavy Red River Valley soil.
Okay.
So anyway, I've got some more planting to do.
Okay.
And so, one of my favorite weekends is going to happen.
Well, keep us posted on the lupins. Maybe we should check in about every month or so, see how they're doing.
The lupin update.
But, because that is something that I think that there's an interest in here, but it's not necessarily the easiest thing for us to grow. You really have to be to be on it. It's not just set it and forget it.
Exactly. And I think the soil, because they grow over in Minnesota, up in the Duluth area and that, like we've talked on previous podcasts, they're just wild, growing in the ditches and beautifully thick. And here we it's the gardener's challenge. I mentioned this to somebody else and said, "Oh boy, you're brave." And so it's well known in the gardening community that lupins are tough to grow.
Yeah.
And so, a challenge.
Yeah, same thing for us too. We've got some 4th of July, some things that we want to have done by the end of the weekend. So we'll see. Hopefully the weather holds out and we're able to spend some good time out in the yard, and it'll be good. It'll be nice to finish up some projects and kind of move on to the next thing. Well, before we move on to the next thing, which is the Independence Day for Gardeners, you have been busy this week. You were out at the fair.
The Red River Valley Fair out at West Fargo. And yesterday was Judging Day. And today, which as we're recording, this is July 3rd, is the opening day of the fair. So yesterday was Judging Day. So I began the day judging the open class, fruits and vegetables. Now that's where the public can bring in exhibits, and they leave them, and then I judge them. And of course, for ribbons, you get a premium. You earn some dollars. And there were some nice fruits, some nice apples developing. Of course, they aren't big, ripe apples, but they are very nice for this stage of year.
Okay.
Gooseberries, cherries, rhubarb. And this was the first year in the 47 years that I've been judging out there, there were no plates of vegetables. None at all. And that has to be a reflection of the spring. There were no plates of onions, no plates of... I think it was it was a late spring, and then it turned hot, and, do you plant, do you not plant? There were frost advisories. And so I think it was a reflection of that it was not the easiest spring to get things going. And so the first time, I think, in those 47 years that there's not been a plate of vegetables. There are plenty of fruits. So it was nice to see some plums, various fruits. And again, they weren't ripe yet, but for the time of you judge them on how they have developed for this time of year. And so, there was some good.
So of all the fruits there, the only one that I've grown is rhubarb, and I think rhubarb is fairly commonplace around here. A lot of people grow rhubarb. What makes a championship rhubarb? What do you look for in a good rhubarb? Because rhubarb is something that now is in its peak. It's probably ending its season, or, as far as when you should be kind of cultivating it, that we're coming close to the end.
Yep, exactly.
What do you look for in a rhubarb? What makes a good rhubarb?
What a judge looks for in a good rhubarb is, of course, the red varieties get some extra credit versus the green varieties, because typically the red varieties probably are a little sweeter and they look nicer in a pie. So the reddish, and if the entire stalk is red, not half red, half green, so we get a few extra points for that. And also, if they're not real big and tough. So the more tender, maybe a little thinner stalk, it kind of gets a few extra points also. And uniformity. The parameters call for 6 stalks, and they have to be shown with the bottom end still intact. So you pull them out and it leaves kind of a little...
You want that curve there, that little kind of whitish
There's kind
curve.
of a little, whatever you call it on the end. Yeah. And then also they are to be cut with a little bit of leaf attached.
Oh, okay.
So now what that shows the judge is that you've picked 6 uniform, because uniformity is big in judging. Can you get 6 rhubarb stalks that all look about the same? And if you didn't have the bottom end attached and a little bit of the leaf attached, you could just take a knife and whack them all the same length, and it looked like you had uniformity. This way the judge can say, oh, okay, yeah, that person was able to find 6 perfectly identical. Or if one's a little shorter, well, then you get kind of docked.
And it also proves
so the fine points of judging rhubarb.
And it also just proves that they didn't buy it in a store.
Yes.
Right.
Good point.
Because they don't have the leaves in the store.
You got it. Yes. That brings up the mind of a number of years ago in July. early July, there was a plate of ripe tomatoes, big tomatoes.
Wow, impressive.
Very impressive, almost too impressive.
And, suspiciously impressive.
Yeah, but you've got to judge the plate the way it is.
Yeah, you take people at their word.
At their word, yes. So I don't know if that plate was store-bought or not. To have a large, fully ripe tomato in Fargo in early July would really be something.
Great hothouse.
Maybe they covered the garden with a hothouse.
Yeah,
and so I always just get a kick out of it. But you don't judge on your suspicion. You judge on the plate right in front of you. But I've never forgotten that ripe tomato. I've never seen it since either. So fun time. And then the rest of the day was spent judging the 4-H exhibits. The 4-H exhibits in the gardening, flowers, fruits, vegetables, the gardening projects are all interview judging. So I'm sitting on one side of the table, the 4-H'er brings up their project on the other side of the table, and we visit. About how they grew it, when did they start it, and do they know the names of the plants? And all of the 4-H'ers that I did the interview judging, they all knew their stuff. There weren't any that couldn't answer the kind of the basic questions that you kind of asked to make sure this wasn't mom and dad's project and you just brought it. So that was encouraging. Yeah. And it's especially encouraging to see those who are really into gardening. There were a couple that I asked, do you enjoy gardening? They'd brought a pot of flowers and they could answer how it was grown and everything. But, I usually ask, do you enjoy gardening? There were a couple that said, not really. And I admired their honesty. Yeah. But then there were others that, you could tell they were into it. And, and that's a slice of the public. Gardening isn't everybody's thing. I don't golf. I don't care to fish unless they're biting really good. I garden, but that's not everybody's thing. And so I appreciated the honesty of the kids.
And 4-H is what? It's ages 6 to 18?
Yeah, about 6 to 18.
Yeah. And as we talked about last week when we had your colleagues, Lily and Sam, and 4-H is not exclusively for farm kids, for ranch kids.
You got it.
For kids outside town. You'll get a lot of people from
for example, Cass County's population of 200-some thousand, a good share of that population is urban. And so there are very strong urban 4-H clubs. And of course, gardening, so I was doing the gardening horticulture. Other judges were doing the woodworking, the metalworking, the baking, sewing. So there are a lot of other projects that kids can be involved in. So a lot of it doesn't have to be directly related to farming.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, you've got a question from a listener that we wanted to get to today.
I do. And this question came in without a name. So that's okay. I'd call you by name if I knew it, so we'll call it anonymous.
Okay, anonymous.
Anonymous. Okay, anonymous writes in, "Hello, Don. We have boulevard lindens, and that's actually a cultivar name. It's called boulevard linden. Yeah. Okay. Hello, Don. We have boulevard lindens planted on our boulevard. That's appropriate. In North Fargo, and have a concern about the appearance of the leaves. They seem to curl inward. We thought they probably might be lacking moisture, so have been watering them in the last few days. What is your recommendation?" And so Anonymous sent in a very nice picture. In fact, there was a series of pictures. And so it's a linden tree that probably, I'm guessing, maybe 7 to 8 years old. It's not a huge big tree, but it's not newly planted either. And the leaves are curling and cupping inward. And the photo that was of the whole tree shows that pretty much all the leaves were cupping inward.
Was there any discoloration?
Not much discoloration. The leaves still fairly green, but they're just the cupping and curling. And On the photos that showed the entire tree, I could also see some of the lawn area around. So anytime I see a tree with curling, kind of distorted leaves, I look at the lawn area that's surrounding it right away. Is it totally free of any weeds? Does it look just immaculate? And what that tells me is that there are herbicides that have been used to control the weeds, and some of the active ingredients in lawn herbicides can move down into the root zone of trees. And so I believe that these lindens have picked up some of that herbicide, and the leaves are doing an almost classic response to herbicide by cupping. Now, trees can be affected by herbicide in a couple of ways. I mentioned how some of these active ingredients will move downward into the root zone, be taken up. They can also vaporize, materials can also vaporize and affect the leaves just from the kind of gas-like vapor that goes up. I suspect that in this case, it almost looks like the active ingredient might have been dicamba, which is a pretty heavy-duty herbicide, and I suspect that that moved downward into the root zone. So what can a person do? There's no antidote for this that will make those leaves uncurl and go back to normal. We can't back up the clock, and trees can have the ability to grow through this. I don't think the tree is automatically going to die, but when trees are affected by herbicide, it's a stress. And then they can be more prone to get insects or other disease or even winter injury. So even though the trees might come through it okay, if we don't continue to apply the herbicide, they might come through okay, but maybe it'll predispose them to something else that will be serious. So herbicides can definitely kill trees, or they can be on the road to having other things kill the trees. So a good option for lawn weed control is to spot treat. Most of our lawns are not a solid carpet of weeds, so we don't need to carpet the lawn area with herbicides, because when we do that, it increases the chances of something going wrong. There's more herbicide that would move down in, or more herbicide that would vaporize and hit the foliage above. But by spot treating, if you've got a dandelion there and one way over there, just spot treat each of those dandelions. It doesn't actually take that long, to just go along and put a little herbicide, right? And then we're dramatically cutting down the amount of herbicide material we're applying on a lawn. So I'll suggest to Anonymous here that investigate what they their herbicide practices, and maybe opt for spot treating. Instead of, because I believe it looks like the lawn maybe is being maybe too much herbicide applied. And trees take a long time to grow. They're an investment in the future. And it's always tragic when something like this happens that could shorten its life.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the tree will be able to bounce back, with time, and by giving it a reprieve from having pesticides around it. But
and sometimes we don't always think of the collateral damage. We don't want weeds to get out of control on our lawns, but then we don't always realize the collateral damage. Oh, the other fascinating part of this is, how far out from a tree do the roots extend? Most of us think we have the idea that the below ground portion is like the above ground portion. That's got this big, deep root system kind of right under the tree. But the root system of a tree actually extends out anywhere from 2 to 4 times the height of the tree. So if this linden was maybe, I was guessing it was maybe 15 feet tall, the root system from the trunk in all directions is probably extending out 30 to 60 feet. So so imagine this big, extensive root system, and the roots are in the top 1.5 to 2 feet. They don't go way down to China. Instead, they go spread outward within those top 18 to 24 inches. So, so if we kind of picture that where the root system of a tree is, and this is a fairly common question. So we're seeing quite a bit of this. A lot of the newer herbicides are quite potent. They're quite effective, but that also makes them a little more dangerous to our trees.
When you saw the picture of the full tree, could you tell were there other plants or anything else in the area? I mean, I'm just wondering if maybe this anonymous would, when you get back to them, ask them if there are to be aware of other plants in the areas that, if you are spraying or using a pesticide, if there's drifting, you could have real problems with other things
Exactly.
too.
Being on the boulevard, the photo only showed the tree plus the kind of the stretch of the boulevard. That brings up a question too. Do you call it the boulevard or the berm?
Oh, I think I go with boulevard.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
To me, I've heard lots of people refer to that strip next to the street as a berm.
Yep.
I grew up kind of thinking a berm was a raised mound.
Yeah,
being a berm.
I take think of that too.
So anyway, terminology.
Well, if people have questions for you about something that's going, maybe if they have questions about something that they're concerned with in their garden, or something if they just want to share something, one of their, we're all seeing some great results in our garden now, or if they want to know the difference between a boulevard and a berm, what's the best way to reach you?
Send me an email, donald.kinsler, that's spelled KINZLER, at ndsu.edu.
All right. And we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about Independence Day for gardeners.
Local news affects your life. It gives you the confidence and clarity to make better decisions every day. You can support that with a digital subscription. Visit inforum.com/subscribe to take advantage of our introductory offer, just $6 for 6 months.
All right, we're back, and this week we're talking about Independence Day for gardeners. This is the 4th of July weekend as we're recording this, but it's also a significant time for gardeners, right?
It is. And I first heard the term Independence Day for Gardener, being July 4th, from old Professor Neil Holland. I don't know if he heard the term from somebody else, but the reason it's called Independence Day for Gardener, because it frees us from some of the duties or the chores that we've done the first half of the growing season. So things that we can no longer need to do, one of those is fertilizing on perennial shrubs, young trees, things that benefit from fertilizing the first half of the season, because fertilizer always stimulates growth.
Mm-hmm.
And with perennials, shrubs, I think we could probably include roses on these. The first half of the season, very important to get good nutrition into that because they're building then for the future. But July 4th, we should stop that fertilizing because those plants have enough to go on for the rest of the garden season, and it will help them to kind of slow down. They'll use up the fertilizer, they'll slow their growth a little bit, and start toughening up. They're already starting. I hate to mention fall, but they'll start to gradually slow down. If we fertilize and continue to fertilize too late into the season, it stimulates flush of tender growth, and that growth might not have time to kind of toughen in, harden off, and would be more prone to winter damage. We'll talk about a little bit later, talk about annual flowers. Those we do need to continue fertilizing, but other things, so that's one thing that kind of frees us. We don't need to fertilize the perennial type things anymore. And also another thing, Independence Day for gardeners, that we no longer need to do is extensive pruning. Pruning does the same thing. It tends to stimulate a flush of growth. You prune something back, and it causes it to send up a new flush of growth. And if we prune too late into the season, that flush of growth won't have time to toughen in, harden off, and there's more chance of things freezing back. Now, kind of traditional hedges, trimmed type sheared hedges, I need to trim ours now. I'll probably do that over the weekend here because if we follow the Independence Day for gardeners and shouldn't be doing pruning much after the 4th of July, my formal hedge, it's an alpine currant hedge that shears nicely. I need to give it its trim now. And you see, if I wait too long, it'll cause that flush of growth that might not toughen in. I'd get more twiggy dieback or something. Yeah. So we're recording this on the 3rd. I better get it done today because tomorrow is the 4th. And so pruning. And really, I get a lot of questions about fall pruning. People wondering, is late summer, is fall a good time to prune? But really not. So most pruning then after the 4th of July should wait until next spring on things. Another item to stop is asparagus harvest. Stops about the 4th of July. And now our own asparagus it's not a very well-established patch yet. I stopped ours a while back because it was starting to send up the big fern-like tops already, so it kind of self-stopped. But for people with a good established asparagus bed, July 4th is kind of considered the time when you take the last harvest and then let the big tops form, because those big fern-like tops, that's what's feeding the roots to keep it in good shape for through the winter and next spring again. So if we keep plucking off all its stems and leaves, it doesn't have much to go on.
Yeah.
So we allow it to have the last half of the growing season to re-energize itself. And really, that's the same with rhubarb. Rhubarb is very generous to us the first half of the growing season. We can pull off a whole bunch of the stalks and leaves, and it just
comes in relatively early.
Comes in, yep. And so July 4th, we should let it kind of do its own thing. Let it have its leaves and stalks so the photosynthesis recharges the roots. Now, if you need to borrow a few stalks to make a pie if the company is coming, I mean, that's fine. It's not going to kill the rhubarb. But generally, we shouldn't do the same heavy harvests for the rest of the growing season. However, in the fall, if frost is forecast, if they say, gosh, we could have a cold spell coming, in a couple of weeks, and all those stalks are going to be frozen anyway by frost, it's fine to use some in the fall too then.
What about between now and then, if there's like the big seed heads come up?
Definitely.
What do you
should
do
be
with
cut
those?
off.
Okay.
Yeah. They are an energy drain on the plant because the rhubarb does not need to go to seed. And that's a pretty big energy drain on it. So those should definitely be cut down to the point of origin.
Okay.
And let's see. Digging and dividing perennials. The middle of summer is really not the time to be digging and dividing perennials. So July 4th is kind of the cutoff too for, waiting. There are some things that we would dig and divide in the fall. Peonies, lilies. Can all be done, but this time between now and then gives us a break. Okay. We're Independence Day again. We're free of not having to do that, but it gives us some time to do other things. And so lawn fertilizing generally also should stop now, unless you have a highly irrigated lawn and it's keeping it nice and cool and lush, and then some lawn fertilizing programs will do the middle of summer here. But for most of us with our non-irrigated lawns, the lawns tend to slow down in middle of summer. They don't need that extra nutrition, and it can actually burn the lawns if moisture isn't really plentiful. So we look again towards Labor Day the next time to be fertilizing lawns. So again, the whole idea of that Independence Day for gardeners is we stop those things, and it gives us the freedom to then do other things. And of course, it's also best for the plants.
All right. And we're going to get to those other things that we should be doing or pick up on.
Yep. We'll our activity doesn't stop. It just switches gears.
Right. And we'll talk about what those will be right after this break.
If you're loving this podcast, be sure to check out our full lineup. From news and local politics to sports and true crime, find your next great listen right now at inforum.com/podcasts. That's inforum.com/podcasts.
All right. We're back, and this week we're talking about Independence Day for gardeners. And the theory there is the things that you should be pulling back on, the chores, the things that you should be doing in the garden, that you should be lessening or stop entirely and focus on other things. So the independence from, as we just talked about, maybe fertilizing the lawn. Stop that, and you can do other things, and you should be focusing on other things. So let's get into that. What are the things that now from the first part of July through Labor Day, let's say, what are the things that we should be working on? What are the chores that we should be that come into focus?
Annual flowers in our pots and planters and flower beds. The annual flowers are heavy feeders. They need that nutrition to keep on blooming. And so the annual flowers, geraniums, a classic example. Geraniums really respond well to fertilizing. Every 7 days, once a week with a good water-soluble type. At least every 2 weeks. But geraniums, if you keep them well fed, they'll continue producing blossoms. I can tell if I slack off a little bit because then you won't get that next flush of blossoms. You'll have more spent blossoms and they aren't getting the buds. So really keeping those. Mary Holm. Mary's husband, Tom, who does a lot of work on container gardens, one of his favorite sayings is, if you want your containers to grow like an elephant, you've got to feed them like an elephant. And so very true. Continue fertilizing those and deadheading. Certain annuals in pots and planters really benefit from deadheading. Geraniums, when the spent flower head, and pretty soon they'll start sending up a seed, turning into a seed stalk. And if we remove those, then they'll have the incentive to keep producing more blossoms. The nice thing is some annuals don't need deadheading. A lot of the wave-type petunias, the Vista bubblegum, and some of the really popular ones, they're self-cleaning. The blossoms just kind of drop off. Many are sterile, so they don't produce the seed head. And can you imagine all these big, beautiful petunia hanging baskets that are lining the streets? NDSU campus has a lot of them, and downtown Broadway. Can you imagine if somebody was having to climb up there and deadhead those?
I think they would find a new plant to do.
Yes, I do. And so they bloom beautifully without. Now, you mentioned snapdragons. They really benefit from deadheading. Because the little spears of flowers, the spikes of flowers, they kind of work their way up, continue to bloom. And then once the bloom is kind of done up at the top, they've got these kind of green seed pods along the stalk. And if a person cuts that seed stalk off, then they send up another flush of blooms. So really important to keep things going.
So they are great for cut flowers.
Oh, they are.
For that reason. For a number of
exactly.
reasons. But they keep reproducing.
Yeah, keep reproducing and regenerating. Yep. And I think I've mentioned before that I think one of the key inventions that really spurred the nursery trade, the invention of the plastic nursery pot. And because that allowed garden centers to have trees, shrubs, perennials on hand all summer long. And so we can continue planting trees, shrubs, perennials. If it's hot, maybe don't do it during the heat of the day. Make sure you water them in really, really well. And once you do water them in well, they generally do not or should not be watered every day. We don't want to drown them. And so, but maybe a couple of times a week, maybe good soaking once a week is all they need. And so with a little attention to them, a person can continue to plant all growing season. I'm still planting. And so we don't need to stop that. Garden centers have nice supplies yet on hand. And I really enjoy that they keep material on hand that we can continue, because I don't get it all done in the spring. Okay, the next thing that we should continue to do is the proper mowing height on our lawn. The mowing height, especially in the middle of summer, should be 3.5 inches high. Good high mowing height. What that does is it shades the roots, because our lawn grass stays nicer and greener and healthy if the roots are shaded and cool. That also helps outcompete the weeds, so less weed pressure at the higher mowing height. And also, there's some neat scientific visuals where the higher mowing height is reflected by a deeper root system underneath.
Okay.
For example, if you mow short, the root system underneath is shorter and more shallow. And a shallower root system can't access moisture down below. So the top part of the lawn is reflected by the underground portion too, which I think is neat. So high mowing height gives a good deep root system. So on my own walk-behind mower, it's about the second to the highest height is what I have to set ours at to keep that 3.5 inches.
Yeah, I think it's 3 and 3.5 is usually kind of a standard for mowers. Yeah.
And so, I have to go almost up to the highest mowing height on that.
What would happen if you went to 3.5? If you gave it even more, would that be even more beneficial?
In fact, I think University of Minnesota suggests 3.5 to 4 inches.
Okay.
At that height, it still looks nice and crisp and clean, so it's not like it looks ragged.
Right.
But it looks
over.
nice. Exactly. It looks a nice thing, and that creates a very that's a simple way to improve the health of the lawn, is just increase the mowing height on that. And let's see, other things, deadheading roses. Many of the roses, the most popular ones are those that rebloom through the season. There are some types that just bloom in June and then they don't. But the most popular ones, of course, continue blooming. And if we deadhead the roses, they'll continue with a flush of bloom. Now, when a person's deadheading roses, there's kind of a fascinating little trick. So you've got the old withered rose up here, and if you go to the next set of leaves right underneath that old blossom, it usually has 3 leaflets. If you cut back to that, you'll usually not get a new flower bud. So you go down to the next set of leaves below, which will have 5 or 7 leaflets. So you deadhead down to right above a leaf that has 5 or 7 leaflets. Roses are compound leaves made up of a number of leaflets. So when you're deadheading, you'll notice right below the flower is a 3-leaflet leaf, but go down to the next one. And that is more likely than to send up a new flower bud.
And then you would just cut off right above that 5 to 7.
Shortly above the 5 to 7 leaflet leaf. So that's it's amazing the wisdom passed along to all of us by old gardeners, and of course any rose book indicates that too. So that's, oh boy. And how are the weeds doing in your yard?
Well, they are coming in. Yeah, all the places where I haven't gotten down mulch yet, boy, they are coming through. All the places where I haven't put down,
barriers. And even in our mulched beds, there's some Canada thistle that sticks, so I need to deal with that. In our vegetable garden, I try to, in our vegetable garden, the areas that I don't have mulched, I do hoe those areas. So I try to get the weeds when they're just tiny, and I need to do some weeding. Weeds are so fascinating. They are so prolific in sending out seeds. Mm-hmm. For example, a purslane, that's that low-growing, I always referred to them as doilies. Did your mom and grandma have these doilies?
I know, flat, my grandma
these crocheted doilies.
Yep.
Okay, well, a purslane almost looks like a doily, and of course they've got kind of fleshy, greenish, reddish leaves, and they're like the zombie of weeds. If you hoe them out, and if you don't physically remove that purslane, they'll reroot.
It's like if you pull it, but then you just drop it, they will go right back.
They'll reroot. I've even pulled them out, turned them upside down, and they still live, with the roots sticking up in the air, and somehow they survive. And so, and also purslane, as an example, one single purslane plant allowed to go to seed can produce tens of thousands of seeds, and they shoot them a distance that's been recorded of 25 feet or more, and they can persist in the soil for 25 to 40 years. So one purslane plant that escapes And that's not hard to let one purslane plant escape. One purslane plant can populate your garden for years. I'm afraid I have a heavy population of seeds down in there. But, if you keep it going, eventually, the nice thing is, if we can prevent weeds from going to seed, you can, as years go on, it becomes less and less of a pressure. Now, I can tell in our vegetable garden, I can tell where I let some weeds go to seed if I miss them. If I've pulled them and they're big and they've already shed some seed, I can tell the next year that then there's this heavy population of little weeds coming up around where that weed was. Because I can kind of remember, I let a red root pigweed go to seed in that spot, and then there's the following year, then there's a bunch of little pigweeds popping up in that area. So it does make a big difference in not letting the weeds go. And then, of course, the other thing, I think the most important to do on the list is to just enjoy. Take some time just to sit in the yard and the perennial garden, take walks through the vegetables, and really enjoy and just let it soak in.
Yeah.
I love it in the evenings. Even on the hot evenings, it's kind of fun just to be out there in it. Even if we aren't doing something in it, it's just to soak it all in.
Appreciate what you've done.
Yeah, that's for sure.
All the work that you've done in. And the other thing, too, is just to really stay on top of when you were talking about lawns, yes, we're not fertilizing anymore, but make sure that everything is getting plenty of water because we are potentially heading into real hot months coming up.
Yep, we are. And, if we would get an inch of rain every 7 to 10 days, we would just be thriving. And, we don't. But so sometimes we need to supplement that inch. But the target amount is 1 inch. And, of course, I like the tuna can set out under a sprinkler. Tuna can is about 1 inch deep, straight-sided, so it acts like a rain gauge. And my kids got a kick out of that because they saw the tuna can sitting out in the flower bed.
You've been watering.
And they said, boy, there's high-tech dad with his tuna can rain gauge. So anyway, yes, so I'm going to be enjoying. I'm just going to be reveling in the beauty of midsummer.
Well, I hope you have a good holiday weekend. If people want to reach you, if people have questions for more things that they should be doing or that they shouldn't be doing.
And if you've got a 6-foot-tall delphinium spire, I would love to see it.
Or pictures of perfect rhubarb or anything else that you want to share. Or
if you won blue ribbon at your own county fair.
Yes. What's the best way to reach you?
Send email donald.kinsler, Kinzler, at ndsu.edu.
And if possible, send along pictures.
Always welcome.
All right. Well, Don, thanks a lot, and you have a good holiday weekend.
Thank you, John. You also, and thanks everyone for listening.